call, please.
Mr. Byrne,
Present.
Mr. Hess, Mr. Washington, Mr. Legess, Mr. Stauffenberg, Mr. Vickery, Mr. Tholen, Mr. Snipes, not yet, Mr. Seroy, Mr. Einfeld, Ms. Evans, Mr. Payton, Ms. Dunbar, Ms. Parker, Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Zenz, Mr. Whaler, Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
Outstanding. We have public commentary today. Mr. Mark Kodak from Kankakee. Turn on the light up there. You just pull the mic down.
And it's one of the best assets I think this county has. And we draw a lot of people from outside this county to enjoy this river. But a lot of them don't know the rules and regulations of our river. And I'm talking about the boating part of the river, the 7-mile pool. We've used this river for hundreds of years, from the entertainment back when the hotel was at Cobb Park to Waterman Park that turned the century before World War I. We've used it all the time. And we're getting to the point that we're getting saturated with boats, and we just need a little bit of help. I hope I could get from this committee or the other two that I have talked to, the city of Kankakee and the county board meeting I've been to. Now I've gone to this meeting. Between the city, the county, DNR, and now I have actually the Coast Guard calling me and asking me what can they help with. Could we get some type of patrolling on the river during the summer? You do have laws and ordinances on the book. Section 42-2, no wake zone. That was put in somewhere around 1977, and that's been somewhat neglected for the last probably 10 to 12 years. You have an ordinance 42.3, no glass containers. And these are the things that we need to keep our river beautiful and safe. And that's why I'm here at the safety meeting asking for some type of help. If 4 of these entities to get together and agree on all the same rules, I think we could just continue using this resource to benefit Kankakee County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming today. Need approval of the minutes from July 11th, 2018. A motion. Mr. Stauffenberg, second by Ms. Dunbar. All in favor? Opposed? All right. No Judge Kramer. Sandy Ciance, come on down. I need a motion to approve Circuit Clerk's monthly report. Oh, Mr. Legess, Chairman Legess, and Mr. Fairfield. All in favor? Opposed? Yes. Good morning.
For the reports on the regular end of period listing for our new member.
It's on.
Is it not on? Use my teacher. Maybe I need to get closer. Does that work?
There you go.
All right. Okay. I can't get any closer. Anyway, for our new member, Mike, the this big long report, that's all the money that comes in to our office, and all the fines and fees, and it gets thrown into all these little buckets of money, so all these different funds. So we dispersed, where's the number, $335,707.59 this last month. The Harrison Harris and local debt recovery program this month, well, the last 2 months since we haven't met, $92,000 for July, which was a great increase over last year's July, and then August it was $82,000, which was another tremendous increase. So our total is $1,051,111 for the year so far, which is around $100,000 more than what we did last year at this time. And then on the back side of that page is the state's attorney court call report. That is a court hearing that we have once a month, and that total now is up to $66,735 for this year. And then down at the bottom you'll see Pan Am Collections. We've entered into an agreement. The state's attorney knows them, and they are a new company that we brought in just to do the felonies alone. So the $4.61, that's because we're just getting started and we've only turned over not even a handful of cases to them yet. So we can look for those numbers to increase as time goes on. They'll be taking the felony cases. And then the Harris & Harris open inventory. So we've turned over, at the bottom it'll show that this year alone we've turned over 2,654 cases to them, and they make up traffic, ordinance violations, misdemeanors, conservation, tickets, and DUIs. And the amount of money that those equal is $1,158,562. So the money that we collect comes from all of the years, that we've on this chart. It's hard to graph what we collect every month because it doesn't necessarily reflect the month that we turned in the money. So we might get money from somebody from 2011, in this month. So it's a complicated report that we haven't figured a way to show how to do that without it being several pages long. So, but this is just a brief synopsis of what we've done so far. So that's our collection effort. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. I have been without two different employees. We now call it the accounting manager. We changed the position a little bit. I've just hired and replaced that person. We've been without that person since June. So I've been trying to help along in that position, as well as a couple of other people. But so I've hired a new accounting manager last week. And then this week I had another one resign in the main office, and so we just hired to replace her this week. So once we get through some of the training, hopefully that'll relieve some of the pressure that we've had. Was it last week or the week before? We had, in the main office, we had one out for personal reasons, one out sick, and then the one that we hadn't, that had resigned. So the main office only had really 1.5 people to work the counter. So I was training the finance person or the accounting manager, and I had to go run into the other office real quick because there was just so many people at the counter and kind of clear that wave out. So we've been really under the gun, but we're getting there, and hopefully now that we'll get these two people trained, that'll take a lot of pressure off.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. State's Attorney Rowe. Morning.
Good morning.
How are you? Oh, sorry. I need to make a motion to accept the grand jury report from the state's attorney. Mr. Legess, Mr. Snipes, all in favor? All opposed?
So you can see, year to date, we got 537 felony offenses have been charged. I think that's up 9 or 10 cases from the same time last year. You remember last year we were up about 40% over the year prior, so keeping pace, up a little bit more. If you look through the stats on case by case, I think you'll see highest number of felonies we've had come through this year, apart from drug offenses. It's on page 104 of those grand jury stats, is the felony domestic battery. That's 57 cases. Felony domestics are usually either a repeat offender or a strangulation case. So that's serious. That's a lot of violence in the home, usually violence that children in the home are exposed to. I'd like to thank Trent. A couple months ago we realized there was an issue with one of the supplemental forms on the reports. It was the domestic violence strangulation form. Trent made those corrections, circulated it through all the departments, got it updated in their system, and that change has allowed us to go forward on more strangulation cases than we were able to in the past. So that may be one reason that number is up, but I'm happy that we're able to pursue those cases now as opposed to before. The lower number was probably nice to look at, but it wasn't really reflective of what we had in the community. So now we're able to go forward on those, and that's in large part due to Trent's work on that issue. And next month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I would encourage everyone, any support you can lend to Harbor House, whether it's maybe collecting items at your business, food items, small donations, clothing, anything like that. I know they'd be more than happy to accept it. We're definitely in need right now. Anyone have any questions about the grand jury report? We're down 3 assistant state's attorneys. So if you recall, a few months ago, the board capped the number, I believe, at 17. We were at 16 at the time. We're now at 13. 3 attorneys have separated from the office. One is Bill Dickinson, who's now, of course, on the bench. So I'm not hiring 3. I'm looking to hire 1 right now, and then we're going to reallocate some responsibilities and see how that works out for a while. So if you see that ad advertising for a juvenile prosecutor, that is not an addition. That is a 3-for-1 deal you got.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, here we go.
My friend.
On the clock.
I know you probably cannot discuss this, but the young man that passed, he was 8 years old, and unfortunately it's a tragedy because of something that was gun related. And there's been occasions where we've seen this happen and happen. Is there anything on the books that deals with parental responsibility to make sure that these weapons are secured, and if not, that, you know, to see that young man and he had just played football about a half an hour earlier and then gone, and it's, you know, so when I'm looking at that and then have to know him, you know, it's kind of hard to see that happen, and I'm saying, are there any safeguards?
There are laws on the book that address situations in which adults are negligent in supervision of children. That specific case, I know that remains under investigation by law enforcement and under review by our office, so I don't want to comment on that case specifically, but there are definitely laws on the books. And I know some communities have stepped up. The Village of Bradley Police Department has been passing out gun locks. I'm sure other departments have done so in the past. So I know that there are safety precautions taking place, but nothing replaces, like any crime, right? Nothing replaces good parenting. There's always the cry, well, what are police doing? What are police doing? Well, what are the parents doing? You know, how are the parents raising these young men to go out and engage in this activity? So I'm glad to hear you mention parenting, because I think that's a really big part of it. It's a big deficit.
Thanks.
Thanks. Public Defender, Gus is not here. Need to make a motion to approve the Public Defender's monthly report. Mr. Snipes? Mr. Vickery? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Sheriff Downey. Good cupcake. Need a motion to his monthly report.
Trying to cut back.
Sheriff's report. Mr. Zenz, Ms. Dunbar, all in favor? Opposed?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. All right, a couple things actually before we start. I would just like to mention that I appreciate Mr. Hodak's comments, and I think he's correct. I think the river has gotten to the point, we have not been on the river, I want to say, Chief McCabe just left, I want to say it's been at least 6 years. Does that sound right, Mr. Hodak? Higher? Yeah. So there were times where we've done some, there was a time a couple years ago where some private money came in and we were out there for a little while, but it is certainly something that needs to be addressed, and I think the best way to do that, as even Mr. Hodak mentioned, is to combine resources and get multiple departments out there. There is some equipment that I know that is still around, so the equipment cost would be minimal, but obviously personnel is the biggest issue that every department faces. So, but I do concur with what you said, and I appreciate your comments, Mr. Hodak. Sure. You can ask anything you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chair. Is there particular specialized training that members of your department have already gone through to deal with, I don't know.
Yeah, we have, there's, I want to say,
Is there river training?
three or four officers that have been assigned to River Patrol in the past.
Okay.
That have,
That are
we
still
had,
with the department.
Yeah, we had jet skis and everything else, and so yeah, we have a number of officers that are very familiar with the river and would also welcome the opportunity.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Just briefly, our out-of-county numbers seem to be staying consistent, which is a positive thing. I think I've mentioned this before, and I think it's important that we stay on some terminology that reflects what exactly it is we're doing with our out-of-county program. Our out-of-county program is just that, an out-of-county program. It's not an ICE program. It's not a for-profit jail. It is an out-of-county housing program. And to give you an example of that, I can just tell you that last year in 2017, our out-of-county inmates generated almost $5 million, where our ICE detainees generated just slightly over $3 million. So, to continually refer to this as ICE and we're making money off of certain individuals, is a misstatement of the actual facts. So just keep that in mind, as I know that some of you are getting questioned and some of you are getting emails regarding that. I myself have gotten an email as well, and I continue to stay in touch with the individuals who are questioning, basically questioning everybody in this room's morals and ethics for doing this, which I thought was totally unfair. However, I have stayed in contact with them, will continue to stay in contact with them, and we are in the process of scheduling a tour of our facility for those individuals as well. So, there's no questions on that.
Mr. Stauffenberg?
Thank you, Chairman. Mike, exactly what happens to each individual that comes in? Could you give us a short synopsis of the process? Because the people that have been talking to me don't know exactly what goes on.
No, and a lot of people don't, and that's okay. It's unfortunately, with the emotion of this issue, one side or the other, and it is. There's emotion on one side, there's emotion on the other side.
Sure.
There's nowhere is anybody talking about the middle. So what happens is when somebody is detained by ICE in this case, the majority of the ICE detainees that we have are not from this area. As I think I mentioned before, we do have 5 or 6 locals that are in ICE custody. Those 6 actually all have charges of heroin and meth cases, and I don't believe that anybody in this room would want those individuals on the street. So what happens in the process is there's a process that goes on in Chicago that, as you see in our transport numbers, we travel to Chicago every day for hearings. We don't transport them for anything other than court hearings in front of a judge. Those immigration judges determine where they are in the process. Some of those individuals who claim asylum or can't return to a country for safety, obviously all that stuff is taken into consideration, and there are people who are looking into these issues. And if those are accurate, there's been a number of people who've been released from ICE custody. So it's not just you're in ICE custody and you're getting deported. That is not the way this works.
That's the way they think it is.
That's the way they think it does, and that's the way they portray it. And I get it. I mean, they want the worst case scenario of individuals to prove a point. Every case is different, much like in the criminal system. Every case is different. And they have a process that they go through. They are all represented by immigration attorneys. And, you know, that's about it in a nutshell. I mean, without getting into specifics.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Snipes.
Yeah, so certainly we've encountered several letters, and they've asked to intervene, but after talking to some, I felt that the process is a due process where they are given an opportunity to have counsel there before the judge, the immigration judge, and they have the opportunity to plead their case one way or the other. I don't think it's no different than if they picked you or anyone else up off the street. You go through a due process. One of the wonderful things about the United States is the opportunity to have a due process hearing. So I'm glad that you were able to elucidate that the process is not picking up and throwing or whatever, and that the other caveat to this is that it could be anyone from any country, anywhere. So it's not just a certain, I'm just picking you out to pick up on you.
That's
the immigration process is for anyone to come. And they also have to remember the safeguard. I understand this is the land of the free, home of the brave. But I also would ask you to consider our guidelines, because we just can't let anyone and everyone, because now it threatens the public safety of the United States as a whole. So when you're looking at these, we know we have these specific groups that have their causes, and I applaud them if that's, you know, what you want to basically do. But I do also encourage you to investigate, and that way you will know the process before you just, let me put it this way, if you don't have correct information, you will use your imagination to disseminate misinformation. Get the information first. That's all.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Hess.
Thank you, Chairman. Sheriff, with a couple of people have talked to me about this, and I don't know how you could put it out, but they say we don't have enough sheriff deputies to be out on the street to patrol. We haven't seen one for 3 months in our area, but they're out arresting these ICE people. People don't understand that we're not out arresting these people. I mean,
No.
sometime in a public service thing or what, I don't know where to go with your telling, you know, they complain about they don't see anybody on the street, and then they say they're out there arresting all these ICE detainees.
I think first and foremost, I would want to know where those areas are that they haven't seen a deputy.
Northeast part of my district, out by the state line.
Okay, that's.
I know
first of
I know it's a lie, but I
all.
can
That's
only
it.
go by
It
with
may-
what
it
they
may
tell
be,
me.
maybe they haven't seen one, but that doesn't mean we haven't been out there.
I know.
Yeah. So I mean, I get that. I mean, that's always that's always a common statement of we haven't seen a deputy. Well, you know, we have documentation that shows we've been in that area. So I understand that, but if they don't feel like that, then we need to make a better presence where that is, so they do see it.
You can't get much farther northeast.
No, definitely. But we are not local police in Kankakee County. Local police statewide are not out there arresting ICE detainees. The only time we may make a criminal arrest, and depending on their legal status, it may end up with ICE. But we are not arresting anyone because they are in our country illegally or because they have an ICE detainer. That is strictly an ICE function.
Thank you.
Mr. Washington.
I get many comments about ICE, and most of them are misunderstandings. We have to explain as best we can that we have a detention facility, and with that detention facility, we obligate ourselves to support ICE in detaining those people. But we also have to make people understand. They talk about we're spending money. There's been complaints about we're spending money. I said, if you want to replace the money that we're taking in for handling these people, come right ahead. We just don't have that kind of money. We don't have those kind of funds. If we're retaining, and we are, we're detaining, holding detainees, then we're justly justified in receiving compensation for those detainees. We can't operate a facility without money.
And that's an excellent point, and it just goes to what we've talked about before. And I know some of you've heard me say this before, but you know, even in a down, I guess call it a down year, where our and this was prior to ICE, where our U.S. Marshal numbers and our Ottawa County numbers were down, we still showed that we were saving taxpayers about $2.5 million. As of today, I think we're still right around $4.5 million that we're saving the taxpayers. I think that's important because technically, if we were saving the taxpayers $100,000, it would be beneficial. So I think, you know, there comes a point where we have to remember that any money that we save the taxpayers is good, regardless of what we're spending. I mean, obviously we try to spend within our means and all that, but the money that we bring in obviously offsets that. So again, if we're making $2 off the whole deal, it's still positive money for the county, and it's not a profit. Just for the record. Anything else?
For Sheriff?
I got two other things here, just to advise the board. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, I've had several requests, again, not getting off the ICE topic. Is there any way, we've talked about this before, and I don't want to create a ton of work for you in your department because you already do an amazing job with small staff, to separate out in your report the money that specifically is brought in by ICE and specifically spent on ICE. So you show...
Yeah, we can probably do that.
So you show in your revenue for bed rentals, but that's all bed rentals, correct?
Yeah.
U.S. Marshals and,
Right.
and
That's
out of
everything.
that's everything.
Yes.
Is there a way to break that out? And then I'm assuming there is because you track it. Is there a way to break out expenses on ICE?
Expenses would be tough. It would
It's-
be
yeah.
somewhat of an estimate. I mean, depending on what you apply to what. But yeah, we can certainly do that.
Could we see that for
Yep.
next month's meeting,
I will
please?
work
Do
a
your
little-
best.
I will work a little overtime, even though I don't get paid overtime.
Don't get paid over. No overtime.
And I can tell you right now, as I mentioned, in 2017, the ICE number that was brought in, the amount that was brought in was $3.2 million, and the other Ottawa County was a little over $5 million. So, and then the expenses, but to break down the ICE expense is a little bit but we will do our best to give you some sort of number. Okay. Couple other things, and then I'll be out of here. Most of you had probably seen there was a shooting in our jurisdiction over the weekend. We met with city police on Monday, and we have a lot of information that we feel like the shootings are related to everything going on in the city, so we're obviously keeping an eye on that. And we are also involved, as you probably heard, of a search for a missing individual that was ongoing, started yesterday, at least the search, and the resources that we had out there in the search between police, fire, EMS was outstanding, and it's always good we had the state police out there. It's right on the border of Will County. We don't know at this point whether he's actually missing or otherwise, so we're being optimistic right now, hoping that we're searching to find him and not find a dead body. So that will continue today. And again, that obviously takes a lot of resources, and you know, I'm a big believer in sharing resources, and we're fortunate that we have the relationship we do with all the jurisdictions in our county, that we all share resources. So it's been a positive thing so far. Hopefully it's a positive outcome.
Mr. Zenz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Sheriff, I was just curious with the increased amount of shootings that have occurred across the county here, say within the last month, and also with pending hunting seasons coming up, if there was any intent to run a firearms safety campaign of any sort.
Yeah, I mean, we always are very proactive when it comes to information getting out there. So yeah, we'll have something out there, and there's all kinds of things that we can do with that. So.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Yeah, please do. Probation, I need a motion to accept the monthly report by Mr. Latham, Mr. Payton, Mr. Fairfield. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Morning, Tom.
Good morning. As you can see, the report, we had 490 successful field contacts and 2,200 office contacts for a total of just over 2,600 contacts for the month, and 20,443 contacts year to date. Completed 41 investigations, did 185 drug tests, which puts us at 1,316 year to date. In the juvenile world, we screened 30 minors for detention, detained 13. We currently have 15 minors in detention and 12 at River Valley. So, and 10 juveniles currently on house arrest. So just hitting the totals there if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Latham at all?
Nothing on.
Oh, Mr. Vicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, how's the state payments on your grants?
We're through May right now.
Pardon?
We're through May with our grant aid.
Okay.
So, what is that, 3 or 4 months behind, which is right on time for the state. So, that's been coming in pretty good. But yeah, we're...
And grant renewals for the upcoming year, what's your feelings on that?
We're going to see a slight reduction just because it was funded at the same level, and obviously cost of salaries go up. So it's funded the same. We're going to lose a little bit, but it's not anything like we've seen in the past, in years past. So I think we'll be okay as far as
Very good. Thank you.
We're also going to see a slight increase in another grant we have to help offset that. So we're doing everything we can with that part.
Yeah, Ms. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where are we, Tom, with the piece of, I don't know, the item that needs to be put in for protection are we still moving forward with that, or
at the annex, annex security? Yeah, it's moving forward. It's moving slow because of just funding, getting people in positions. Router and all the work that had to be done at the annex to get it ready, that's been completed. Other items have been ordered. So once positions are filled, and we have the people for that, the deputies for it, it's ready to go on the other side. So it's just putting that part in place. We haven't had loaded weapons brought in. We haven't since my last time here, but we've had other issues. Just for some reason in the last couple of years, individual males going into the female bathroom, and when they go in there, females obviously go into the restroom. There's a man standing in there. One was laying on the floor, sleeping. On what he's doing. These individuals were clothed. They had their clothes on, which was a plus. We're moving in the right direction. But we have issues with when it gets hot out. I always said before, it's using as a cooling center, and there's making comments to female staff and those little minor things that we have to get people out of the buildings. But the individual that had the loaded weapon that we found took a plea. Is today Wednesday? Yeah. Monday. So I think that's up in November for sentencing. So we'll see what happens with him. So, but yeah, no other. That's where we're at. We're ready on the the side. Once we get the people, everything can be put in the building. It's done. So.
Oh, so it's Attorney Rowe.
I have absolutely nothing, Mr. Latham. But I wanted to, I forgot to mention, I wanted to further elucidate on our November, on October 5th, we'll be having a firefighter memorial service similar to the law enforcement memorial service on the courthouse lawn. It'll be at 11 a.m. on October 5th, pending permit approvals. But I'd really appreciate it if the county board and could, bring out some of your friends, families, and community members. We really want to show our support for the firefighters. So again, that's October 5th at 11 a.m.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, the drug court, September 5th. Well, we got the auction coming up. But September 5th, we received word from AOIC. So what is that last week? That we received our certification for the program, for the problem solving court program, which is a big deal. It's a lot of work. It involves every office that's involved with drug court, local treatment providers, everything. A lot of paperwork, a lot of site visits, and that's good for 3 years. So that was complete, and that was a long process. I got Joe Ewers, a supervisor in our office, did a lot of work, took the lead on that, and he deserves a lot of credit because it's a frustrating process. It's a lot of back and forth, and so we're happy about that. Like I said, it's good for 3 years, and then we'll go through it again. So on the drug court auction, 26th. 26th, Friday the 26th. Yeah, Friday. At Knights of Columbus, starts at 6, dinner at 7, followed by the auction. Tickets are $35 for singles, $60 for a couple. You can buy a table of 8 for $240, and I will have tickets on all the time because I've been horrible about that in the past. I bring it up and then I don't have tickets to give people, so I do have tickets, and I'll have them with me all the time. So, and you can call me if you need anything with that. Last thing, our contract is negotiations are done. It's been ratified. It's waiting signature of the chief judge, or it's waiting review of our attorney in Springfield, which I should have here next day or two. I'm hoping to have the contract signed by the chief judge early next week, and we'll be done with that. It was a 5-year deal. It expired in November, so we're good through fiscal year 22, which is nice for both counties. Both offices were happy that at least there's some predictability. First, they know what they're looking at. So it was the process went pretty smooth. Like I said, expired at the end of November, so we got it done pretty quick. So last was we're replacing our computers. All 32 computers were in the process, or 25 in Kankakee, 26 in Kankakee, and 6 in the Iroquois office. That's in the process. Kevin obviously is handling that, putting that into place. That'll be done. That's coming out of special funds because that's going to cost in Kankakee about $25,000 to get all that done. But that's all special funds, so that'll be done.
One quick question. On cases closed, those are individuals that are off of probation, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like 260 this year. So are those like short-term probations or?
No, it's just that their terms ended. They could have been on for 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But this is when they were terminated, or they successfully or whatever completed, whatever category.
Oh, okay.
But they're closed.
Anything else, Mr. Latham?
Thank you.
Have a great day. Coroner's report. Bob is gone. Happy anniversary to Bob. Eric Cavender, I don't need a motion to combine and accept the monthly report and the monthly receipts of money. Mr. Washington, seconded by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Opposed? Passes.
Warren? Yeah, Bob's away celebrating 43 years of marriage, so congratulations to him.
Yep.
He's a youngster, you're right. He's a youngster. So call-wise continuing. We're continuing to chug along. Autopsies were up a little bit in July and August. We got hit with a rash of kids over the course of a couple days. You referenced one. 18-month-old, a 2-year-old, and an 8-year-old all in 72 hours. So hard dealing with one of those, but when you get 3 or 4 thrown together, it becomes even more taxing on everybody. So that's that. The overdoses were at 20. Says 13 there. It never fails. As soon as we send the reports to Diane, our queue uploads and numbers change. So that's changed. Our getting into our busy season where schools are starting to contact us to arrange different things throughout the school year. Actually, today I'm going up to Aurora to speak to about 100 senior citizens. So that'll be kind of exciting, I guess. About opioids and those dangers. Our first opioid forum is going to be November 13th at 6 p.m., so save the date for that. It's going to be at BBCHS in the auditorium, and there will be more information forthcoming about that. That's about all.
Any questions? Any questions for Eric?
Welcome, Mr. Zenz. If you ever want a tour, let us know. We can get you that.
Highly recommended.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Any old business before the committee? Any new business before the committee? I need a motion for adjournment. Mr. Legess, seconded by Ms. Dunbar. Have yourselves a great day.